Buy these 10 cards before they double in price. Prismatic Evolution's PCE TBs are never coming back down to MSRP. Destined Rivals booster boxes are going to the moon. Buy 151 and hold forever. This is the kind of content that you probably come across if you're even remotely interested in Pokemon investing in today's world. And whilst there's nothing wrong with consuming that type of content, I think that there's one big thing that you're missing when you're watching it. In today's video, I want to talk you through what I think that is and how I think you can get more out of your time when you're watching this type of content. Let's get straight into it. Hey guys, my name is Thomas and you're watching Pokemonster. If you're new to the channel, I started my own Pokemon business this January just to show the journey of an average guy trying to grind out a Pokemon business whilst working part-time. If you're interested in following my journey, feel free to like and subscribe. But as many of you will know, before I started this Pokemon business journey, I was and I still continue to be a Pokemon investor. I'm very interested in following the market and seeing how, my sealed investments are performing over time. It's something that I enjoy doing, of course, because I love Pokemon at the core of it. Don't mind my cat back there, but in today's Pokemon investing space, there are many videos that are centered around what I would consider to be slightly trivial questions around whether a certain product is going to keep going up, whether it's going back down to MSRP, what you should be buying, selling, or holding, and there's a lot of debates that are focused around that. At the same time, you get other types of content that talk about what singles are going to double in price in the next 3 months and what you should be buying right now. And I think that when you're watching this type of content, there's one big thing that you're missing out on. I think the thing that you're missing when you're watching this type of video is the framework of thinking or the underlying analysis as to what has driven someone to make those recommendations. So what I hope you can take away from today's video is how to think for yourself, so to speak, in the least insulting way possible. I think there is still value to be had in consuming this type of content. I personally have not been watching. I've been tapped out a little bit from Pokemon investing content, but I still think that it's valuable. What I'm saying is that you should try and stop using it as your core source of content for what to buy and see it as a supplemental type of content to what to buy. The primary content of what to buy has to come from your own brain, because only you know what circumstances you are, how much budget and money you have, and what your investment horizon and plan is. And the thing is that if you're watching my channel, you're probably watching a lot of this investing type of content. Don't mind my cat in the background, I'm gonna keep that in. The data shows it itself by the type of channel that my audience watches. So what I would like to do today is talk in very general and basic terms as to what you can take out or how you can get more value out of the time that you're spending in consuming this content. So this video is going to be mainly focused around sealed investing discussions and what type of products you should be buying. I'm not going to make any recommendations as to what you should be buying because that defeats the purpose of this video. I'm going to talk generally about what these types of videos cover and what type of thing you can take away from it. You look at some of the biggest investing channels, a lot of their videos will be tracking daily or weekly price fluctuations of various products. What I think you should be looking at is there is a consistent theme across everything that even I've learned myself. The first thing that usually starts with is talking about the age of the product. In some ways, it does matter in the discussion of people's debates about, whether a product is going to go back to MSRP or whether it's going to keep going. The older a product is, the less likely it is to be in the print window from the Pokemon company or the Pokemon company in Japan, so to speak. Now, the print window is usually 2 to 3 years, but more importantly, I think the age of a product is just, there is a relationship between the age of a product and its value. Usually the older it gets, the more it's worth. What are the reasons for that? You can make of it what you will, you can try and analyze it. Part of it is the rarity of the product increases over time, and you see that even with rare sealed products that don't have anything good inside, like a Sword and Shield base or a Rebel Clash, the older they get, the less you can see on the market. So age is a determining factor that I see often that is implied, or it's one of the underlying factors that drives these investing content creators' analysis when they're making recommendations to you. There are other factors as well that I've learned from watching these types of content, which is talking about the value of the top hits or the value of the set as a whole. Now you look at a few sets like Silver Tempest or even Lost Origin, I would say, or Obsidian Flames. Those sets have one big card at the top and then a few cards that are slightly lower in value. I think in the case of Obsidian Flames and Silver Tempest especially, you've got the big Lugia, you've got the Charizard SIR, and the second ranking card underneath it, probably in Silver Tempest, is the Rayquaza VMAX from the Trainer Gallery, and in Obsidian Flames, I don't even know, I'm gonna guess it's the Gold Zard or maybe an illustration rare. But the point is that those things seem to matter as well towards the value of a sealed investment. But it's up to you to decide and look at these types of products and think about whether there is or isn't a correlation between the value of a set or the total set value, or whether it's the value of the top hit or the value of the top 5 hits, and how that influences the box price. Because when you're looking at sealed investments, there are always a multitude of factors that come into play. But one thing that is important to look at, I guess, is the value of the top hits, what is actually contained in the set. And this is why I made a video towards the end of last year talking about Surging Sparks and why I thought it had huge potential. Again, you might disagree with me, this is just my framework of thinking. The reason why I felt like Surging Sparks had huge potential is because it felt like the first set, if you discount Twilight Masquerade, I guess, which had multiple hits that people would want to chase in the set. So you had the Pikachu SIR, you had the Milotic SIR. With the Phoebus, you had the Latias and Latios IR and SIR. So now we've got the age of the product and what you get inside, I guess, are the two most basic principal factors that you should be looking at. I've touched on this a little bit, but the rarity of the sealed product itself, I think, is important, because it can lead to this discrepancy in the future where the box costs more than the top hit in a PSA 10. And for a long time we saw that even with EX Dragon Frontiers, where the Gold Star Charizard was probably about 25k US dollars in a PSA 10 and the box price was probably around 35 to 40k. Now I don't know if that still holds, but maybe if you're looking into buying some slightly older product, the rarity of it as a sealed product itself can play a factor in what it's worth, and that's best displayed by the price relationship of the top hit and the box itself. I mean, you could argue even that team up is sort of a function of that. It does have the 10k, 12k Latios, but the product itself is also quite rare to find nowadays, which might have an impact on its value. The other thing that I found really interesting, and this was a term that I didn't know of before, I obviously had ingrained that type of thinking when I look at these sealed products, is actually the concept of price relationships between various sets and the concept of repricing, which is that, you know, if Evolving Skies goes up to 2,500 bucks as it is, then what should the second most valuable set in the Sword and Shield era, Fusion Strike, be worth? What should the third most valuable set in the Sword and Shield era, Lost Origin, be worth? And I think part of that is probably what's took up Fusion Strike, what's helped Lost Origin to rise. It's in people's heads, there are certain price relationships that are set in stone in terms of what the top set is and what the second set and the third set is. So when one of those moves, it makes people rethink whether the other sets around it are accurately priced. And I think that's probably an interesting or important thing to think about as well. Something else which I think is not talked about enough is how widespread and how easy is a product to identify and understand what it's about. And that can extend a little bit more to cards as well. But you look specifically at Pokemon 151 and you talk about it to anyone who has remotely any interest in Pokemon but isn't in the TCG, and I think that's probably why Pokemon 151 has done so well to date, is because it brought back a lot of people who weren't engaged in the Pokemon TCG sphere for a very, very long time. Arguably, there is one good reason as to why that happened. It's because the set name is very easy to identify what it's about. It's a Gen 1 set, and you look at the pack art, it's a Mew with a Pokeball, Mew being the 151st Pokemon. So I think all of those things do have an impact as well, which is how recognizable is a card or a product to the wider masses. And I think that's probably also what helps some of these anniversary sets, including the 25th anniversary Japanese booster box set. I mean, you look at that set, it doesn't have the classic collection from Celebrations in it, yet the box price is now about 120 to 150 pounds, which you wouldn't think should be happening because the top hit in that set is the Gold Mew, which in a PSA 10 is about 150 pounds. But I think part of what's driven the value in that is not the contents, but the recognizability, the ease of recognizability of that product, which is it's got a Pikachu on the top and it has literally 25th anniversary collection in English on the Japanese box art. Similarly, I think maybe Celebrations will have a similar impact to that. I mean, people are speculating, of course, on it because of the 30th anniversary. Whether or not the value is justified or not, that's for you to decide again, which is why I think this framework of thinking about all these different things that people have ingrained in their mind when they're making recommendations. I think it's important to try and draw that out and be aware of those things so that you can apply it yourself. I mean, you look at these single cards, I think something that's really stunned me in how well it's done is actually these Pikachu exclusive promos that have some sort of collaboration with the art world. And I think just from anecdotal experience, even people who have no interest in Pokemon think that's super cool. And I'm talking about the Van Gogh Pikachu, I'm talking about the Scream Munch promos, I'm talking about the Stamp Box Pikachu, which is based on an ancient Japanese artwork which has been readapted. I think that all of these things actually do have an impact on the investability, so to speak, of a certain product. The final thing I need to touch on, which I think people don't talk about enough, is do you actually like the thing that people are recommending to you? Because I think that ultimately people need to recognize and remember that the only thing or the main thing that gives collectibles value is people's emotional attachment to them, right? Pokemon cards, yes, you can talk about the rarity, you can talk about the age of the product, but it doesn't matter if you don't like Pokemon. The only reason why those things have value is because there's someone else who had the same experience as you growing up and Pokemon played a huge part in their lives, who now wants to relive that and is willing to put down that a certain amount of money, you know, 3, 4, 5, even 6 figures for that type of product. So when someone is recommending something to you, do you actually like it? And I think that is at least one of the important factors that you need to think about, even if it's not the number one determinative factor as to whether you should or shouldn't buy something. So how do I draw this up and how do you get more value out of the content that you're already consuming? And so to speak, get more bang for your buck, right? Because we live in an attention economy where literally you're paying for people's content with your time. So how do you get more out of watching these things? It's really just to apply this framework of thinking and try to draw out what are they actually talking about. So when people are making these recommendations to you, think about the thought process that they've used to go behind those recommendations. Extrapolate that thought process from multiple videos that you're watching into a general framework of things that you should be thinking about when you're buying something, and then try to think for yourself, so to speak. So my recommendation to you is don't make this type of investing content your core content in terms of guiding and telling you what exactly you should be buying. I think look at it as supplemental content to keep up with what's going on in the market, but also think about or learn about how these people are thinking in terms of how they recommend items to you and apply that thinking to what works for you. Because the most important thing is to know that each person's circumstances, whether financially, whether investing wise, in terms of your time horizon, in terms of your plan, in terms of how much you actually like a product, is different. So you need to think about how to apply your own way of thinking to the Pokemon market. And I think if you can do that, it will make it more fun and interesting for you. And ultimately, that's what I'm here for. It's for fun. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. There is also a hype feature that allows you to help hype up my video, to help boost it up the rankings. I'll try and come back with another video for you guys next week, but I'm away at a show for the next 2 weeks. So let's see how that goes. Thank you very much for watching and happy collecting.